Book Flamingo, Poem First, My Mother at 66 by Kamala Das. This poem is a form of narrative of 14 lines written as a single sentence, so this is called as enjambment. The poem is written in the single sentence punctuated by commas. This highlights the stream of consciousness effect where one thought leads to another. In this poem, the poet has given a beautiful message that aging is a natural process and it will affect each one of us. The complexity of life is that children are perturbed by the condition of their parents and wish to be with them. However, they have to leave their parents behind and move on with their commitments. My Mother at 66 captures the fear of the narrator of losing her mother due to declining health and loss of the energy which accompanies old age. The poet accepts this reality and is disturbed by her mother's need for her on the one hand and her own duties and responsibilities on the other hand. This helplessness is poignantly brought out in this poem. The emotions experienced by the poet are essentially universal in nature. The fear of losing a loved one is a theme of the reader that one can identify through this poem. Let's start the poem. Driving from my parents' home to Cochin last Friday morning, I saw my mother beside me. In these lines, the poet recalls a trip back to Cochin from her holiday in the parents' house the previous week. It was a Friday, and that morning she was driving with her mother next to her on the front seat. Nose open mouthed, her face ashen like that of a corpse, and realized with pain that she was as old as she looked, but soon put that thought away. These lines, the poet says that she was observing her mother, who had fallen asleep on the front seat with her mouth slightly open. Her mother's face was pale, and it reminded her of the nearly white faces of the dead bodies. It is then that she comes to realize that her mother was not young any longer, and that her appearance had caught up with her age. This was very hard for the poet to accept, and so she was determined to focus her attention on something else. Looked out at young trees sprinting, the merry children spilling out of their homes. But after the airport's security check, standing a few yards away, I looked again at her, wan, pale. These lines, the poet says that she turned away from her aging mother and decided to look outside the windows of the car in which she was driving. Outside, her eyes fell on the trees that the vehicle was passing by. The car was moving so fast that by way of relative motion, it seemed to the poet that all the trees she could see were also running at full speed past her. It seemed that those trees must have been quite youthful if they had the energy to move at such a fast pace. The poet's eyes also fell on the children who were coming out of their houses, brimming with their excitement to get outside. The poet passed all these sights and reached the airport. Till then, her mind was distracted by the sights. However, after the security check, she was standing a short distance away from her mother, and again she chanced to notice the old woman. Just as before, her mother appeared very pale and insipid as a late winter's moon, and felt that old familiar ache, my childhood's fear. But all I said was, "See you soon, Amma." All I did was smile and smile and smile. In these lines, the poet compares her mother's face with the sight of the moon on the night towards the end of the winter. This made her recall the thing she had been most afraid of during her childhood, the fear that her mother would die one day. This was a fear that had plagued her many times before. It was plaguing her again now. However, she did not let that fear show itself on her face. Instead, she put up a brave face and waved goodbye to her mother. She assured her mother that they would be seeing each other again soon. And all the while, even though she was in a great agony, the smile never left her face.